Okay, so remember in the last video, we had a function f of x equals negative 4. I'm sorry, that is not what it was. It was negative x to the fourth plus 4x cubed and minus 4x squared. And then we factored it. So the function was negative x squared times x minus 2 squared. Okay, that's what we got when we factored it. Okay, and we found the zeros. The zeros were 0 and 2. Okay, so remember all that. Now, we didn't talk about the end behavior, but let's talk about the end behavior. It's negative and it's x to the fourth, so even exponent, and it's going to be going down to the left and down to the right. Okay, we know that it's going to cross the x-axis at 0 and 2. Okay, so just some ideas then here. If I drew a little graph here, I know I'm going to have a point here at 0, and I'm going to have a point here at 2. Those are going to be x-intercepts. Remember, these are the x-intercepts. Okay, now we're going to talk about multiplicities of zeros. So where did that 0 come from? Where did the 0, 0 come from? It came from this expression right here. And notice that the exponent was 2. That means, so if I'm listing the zeros, and I say there's a 0 and there's a 2, and I want to list what's called the multiplicity. So a multiplicity is how many times that factor appears. So the multiplicity for 0 is 2 because the exponent is 2. And then this won't be very exciting, but the multiplicity of 2 is also going to be 2 because that is also being squared. So it'd be more fun if I had something like x minus 5 cubed. That would have a multiplicity, 5 would have a multiplicity of 3. Okay, so the 0 would be 5 because that's what makes the factor 0. But it's got an exponent of 3, meaning there are 3 factors of x minus 5. So the multiplicity is 3. Okay. All right, so that's what multiplicity is. It'll make more sense when we go to an example. But what do multiplicities tell us? They tell us behavior at the x-intercepts. So if the multiplicity is even, multiplicity, can't spell, is even, then it's going to, I like to say, bounce. It's going to bounce off the x-intercept. So maybe our graph over here is coming up and it's going to hit that x-intercept at 0 and it's going to bounce. Or in other words, it's going to turn around. I think that's how they say it in the textbook. It's going to hit the x-axis and turn, go back the other way. Okay? Now, we know that eventually it's got to come up and hit this other x-intercept. But it also has a multiplicity of 2, and so it's going to bounce and come back down. Okay, now that matches the end behavior. We don't know exactly what it's doing here in the middle. We don't know how far down it goes before it turns, but we know a little bit about what's happening at the intercepts, at the x-intercepts. Okay? All right, and that's what we decide. So here I like to use the word bounce, but you can say it turns, hits and turns or something, I don't know. Okay. By the way, you need to know the end behavior so you know if it's coming up or if it's going down. Okay, so the end behavior is still important. So that's if the multiplicity is even, which both of ours were even here. So even multiplicities. But what if it's odd? So if the multiplicity is odd, it's going to cross. It's going to cross the x-axis. Okay? All right. So we will leave that. Now, it says find the zeros of, they already have it factored for us. So we should be able to tell the zeros. The zeros are -1, and the other one's going to be 3 over 2. Okay, so if you don't know how to get the 3 over 2, take the factor 2x minus 3, set it equal to 0, and solve, and you should get 3 over 2. Okay, so find the zeros. We found the zeros. Give the multiplicity. Okay, so I'm going to just write underneath multiplicity because you do it per 0, multiplicity. So the -1, so I'm looking at the -1 now, right here, that's where we got the -1 from that factor. What's the exponent? It's 1. So the multiplicity is 1. Okay. And then when we look at this one, it had a multiplicity. That's where we got the 3/2 from, that factor. But it has a degree of 2, so the multiplicity is 2. Okay? Now it wants us to state if it crosses or touches, that's how they said it, touches the x-axis and turns around. I like that's better, but anyway, cross or touch. Okay, so if it's a 1, if the multiplicity is 1, it's going to cross. If it's an even number, it's going to touch and turn. Touch and turn. Okay, it's going to bounce off the x-axis. All right, so that's what multiplicity tells us.